So over a decade ago at my courses, I started highlighting a specific point within the market, and I coined a phrase to highlight a specific point. That phrase was crossover point. And in this video, I'm going to discuss how that phrase came about and what it means for you in your trading. That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Please like or dislike the video or leave a comment below. That will allow me to produce better videos and more of them in the future. So what are crossover points? Well, in simple terms, they're the place within a market where the odds increment changes. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at odds of 2, you'll find that odds leading up to 2, if we move up the ladder, go 196, 197, 198, 199, 2. But when it passes through 2, it goes 202, 204, 206, 208. So when you look at that, you can see that the odds increment is changing at that particular point. It's an oddity with exchanges because when you look at fractional odds that you see on course or with bookmakers, there are generally not many odds available to you, whereas using decimal odds there are 351 and they're spread right across the book, but they don't go 101, 102, 103 and then 456, 457. The increment changes because otherwise you'd have 1,000 odds at different levels. And that isn't the sort of thing that you see on Betfair. They only have 351 odds, and in order to get from 101 to 1,000, they alter the speed at which those odds change. So this is one of the reasons that we actually have auto staking on BetAngel, is because if you go into BetAngel and you say, I want to earn £1 per tick, in other words, £1 per odds movement, you can set that in the auto staking and it adjusts it according to where the odds are within the market. But also in BetAngel, what you'll notice is that the odds increment, the crossover point, is highlighted actually on the ladder itself. You can turn that off if you want to, but it's defaulted on, so you know where these key points are within the market. The interesting thing about the term crossover point is it was a phrase that I coined a long time ago, over 10 years ago. And the reason that I called it a crossover point is because rather than saying the place where odds increment changes, I had to think of a catchy phrase that would just explain it with one word or 2 words. And it's interesting to see that it's coming in more common use now. So you can see people that have either been taught by me or influenced directly or indirectly because they're also using the same phrase. And the fact is that the name crossover point was something that I invented to describe this point, to shortcut explaining where this key point was in the market. But the interesting thing about this was the phrase, it actually comes from a road sign on the A30 just up here. Check it out if you want. Yeah, actually, you probably would do that on Google Street Maps. But I was looking for a way to describe this key point within the market. And when I was driving up the A30 here to the next village, I saw a sign in the middle of the road which described exactly what I wanted to do. And the sign said crossover. And I was thinking, oh, perfect. I'll describe it as a crossover point. And that's the sort of term that people are using now. It's not the first time that one of my terms has gone into common use. But the interesting thing about this is that over the years I've changed my view on crossover points and the way that they should be traded, because I had quite a simplistic view when I first started talking about it all those years ago. But as always, markets evolve and move on, and so you tend to find that your strategies move on and your interpretation of things move on as well. But typically I would describe crossover points within the market as key, not only because of the odds increment change that occurs on either side, but also because they tend to be points of congestion. So I know that some people have tried to say that they're points of support or resistance. I would disagree with that. They're points of congestion where the market begins to slow down at that particular key point. It doesn't necessarily stop a trend in either direction, but it will force you to sit there and reinterpret what you've done and whether you're still doing the right thing. So there are lots of people, they're nicknamed increment squatters, that sit at those key points. You see them in tennis, football, particularly racing, where people actually put orders in and around that point trying to profit from the differential at those key points. And it's funny actually, because sometimes you can see people doing it in markets that are totally unsuitable. It doesn't make any sense to do it. So you can exploit that when you see people sat at those particular points. But typically what tends to happen is that the market slows down when it reaches these points. And even if you're on a great trade, you may find that it just stops temporarily there before continuing through it in either direction. And I would definitely classify a crossover point now as a point of congestion rather than saying necessarily it's a natural entry or exit point within the market. There are certain characteristics with it that will work in your favor at certain times, but that varies by market and by what you're attempting to do. But it's important to have a look at these points within the market, because you will find naturally that these areas that get slightly congested at certain points. So if you're on a trade that's about to pass through one, then you may find that may take a little bit more effort to get through that particular point in the market. Or if you find that you've got a trade that relies upon not going through one of those points, then you may want to reassess it as it approaches that point. But the long and short of it is crossover points are points within the market where the decimal odds increment changes. They're highlighted automatically in BetAngel. They are key points within the market, and it's something that you should have a look at. There are several videos where you'll see me in and around those particular points in the market, but typically they tend to be points of congestion, areas where your trade will slow down and it may accelerate from that point, or it may just get bogged down for a little while. So that's a reason that you should have a look at those particular key points within the market. I thought I'd add a little bit onto this video as well, because one of the things that has changed in the way that I look at the market is I realize, in fact, there are lots of key points within the market nowadays. And when I first started talking about crossover points, I sort of highlighted them as a particular key point in the market. But it's interesting to note that since I've had that discussion, my thought process has evolved significantly to the points where I can actually spot a whole range of different areas in the market where something is or isn't likely to happen. So yeah, don't think that this is just the key point or a key point within the market. There are actually loads of them for a number of different reasons. I'm not going to attempt to explain it in this video, but maybe I can do that at some point in the future. So now that you've got a better idea of what crossover points are, let's have a quick look at them inside BetAngel.
So I've brought up the ladder screen on BetAngel, and you can see the normal display that we normally see here. We've got 4 ladders currently being displayed. But if you actually look up and down the ladder, you'll notice that most of the colours are in white, apart from where the crossover points are. So you can see there's a crossover point at 4, crossover point at 3, and then you can see one at 6 and one at 10. So they're very easy to find and locate on the ladder. But I'll just quickly explain the difference between all of these key points in the market. If you look at odds of 3, you can see above 3 it goes up in increments of 5%. So you can see it's going 305, 310, 315. And below 3 it's going down in increments of 2%. So you can see 298, 296, 294, 292. At 4, if I just scroll this up a little bit, you can see it's going 0.1% up. So 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4. And on the way down it's going 395, 390, 385, 380. And then at 6 you can see it's going down 0.1% at a time, going up 0.2 over here. And then when you get to 10s, you can see it's going up 0.5 in that direction and going down 0.2 in this direction. So that they're significant points in terms of where the increment changes in the market. Now, you don't have to have these colours on. You could switch it off if you want, or you could put it a different colour, however you want to do. That's configurable through the ladder settings in BetAngel. So if you go to the settings, we'll bring across the ladder settings. And you've got a whole variety of different settings that you can have from within here. But you can see also all of the font sizes and everything can be changed from within there as well. And if you look at the option that we've got here, highlight to change a price increment, then you can change the highlight color there. So if you wanted to make it a gory red, we could do that, or you could change it to any one of the other colors that you so wish. There's a whole range of different colors that you want from there. But the most important thing to note is that they are highlighted. The crossover point starts at 2, so you can see it goes 2, 202, 204, 2, 199 and so on, and then continues upward from there. If you scroll up and down the ladder, you'll see where all of those key points are within the market. Suspended. And that's where you can find the crossover points on BetAngel.
If you're interested in learning more about BetAngel, why not visit betangel.com today and download a free trial.